Hey YouTube, this is about a video from the Unleashing channel. It's about what's really going on with the so-called coronavirus. I'm as concerned about his spiritual beliefs that I agree with as I am about the letter he's reporting. So let me get to this video and find the right spot for you to get it started. And we'll be on with this because I think I've got the right sound now. So we'll see. You've seen a lot of tests on this channel, but I think this is it. So let's go back to the video, see where I'm at.
Animal market. You will have been told that this influenza-like illness officer reveals true magnitude of China's fake coronavirus crisis.
Here we go.
And we'll talk about it as I go through it. It's kind of a long read, so it'll be about 15 or 20 minutes. But I want to show you guys what I'm talking about, this seriousness and why I believe I got an answer on why I need to be out of here absolutely right now, and why I only have a short time possibly to go warn people, because it's all lining up like never before. Okay, here we go. Let's get started. I got a story here that I read Monday night. Corona unmasked. Chinese intelligence officer reveals true magnitude of China's fake coronavirus crisis, February 13, 2020. Okay. To free the Chinese people, under the headline, for the good and general welfare of the Chinese people in the world, permission is hereby granted to copy, quote, or reproduce this article with a link back in full and in part with the hope that this and these revelations will help to free Chinese populace and the citizens of Hong Kong from the evil that has befallen them, okay? And then I'm going to get right into this. I'm going to read what he has to say, okay? And this might be shocking, but this is exactly what we've been looking for, and I believe it's definitely the sign that everything's about to happen right now, and why the urgency of what's going on in my life, and why I need...
What he's saying is it's a sign of the end times. It's a sign that we're in the last of the last days. We are about ready to walk into some of the last 7 or 8 years of time as we know it.
I needed to get out of here because I didn't know this until, like I say, Monday night, and I'd already given up my job and stuff like that, and told them I was going to be leaving.
I'm going to skip forward a second and get to the letter.
It will not surprise you to hear that if my identity were to be revealed, my life would be in grave danger, as would those of my wife and son. I ask you to respect the fact that I have stripped out, discount all facts that would make it easy to identify me. By now you will be familiar with the recent outbreak of 2019 in NCOV, also known as NCP, simply coronavirus. You will have heard that it originated in Wuhan, an industrial city in China, and that it came from an animal, most likely a bat or a pangolin. This was sold in a wild animal market. You will have been told that this influenza-like illness that can, in several cases, cause pneumonia, respiratory failure, and death. Finally, you may have heard that although the disease is highly infectious, it is dangerous only to elderly or to those who have compromised immune system. The official lethality rate is approximately 2% or so, which isn't too bad. All that is a bunch of lies concocted by the Chinese state with the tacit support of the U.S. deep state and its friends in the European Union, Russia, and Australia, and spread by the docile media in all of those countries. Let me start by telling you that the world does not operate the way you think it does. Although countries like the U.S. and China vie for global dominance, the competition is restricted to certain limited areas. In most ways, the two countries are more interested in cooperation so that they can stop other competing countries and gaining more power. They also have shared interest in keeping real power out of the hands of their ordinary citizens. To this end, they have many different mechanisms by which they control the overwhelming majority of their media outlets. The Americans in particular have perfected the art of creating up divisions between their two main parties, which are designed to hide the fact that both serve the same masters. Okay, this is totally true. All right, the whole thing's a charade. I've been saying that the whole time. But behind closed doors and everything like that, there is a global connection, whether it's deep state or whatever else they know. They have an agenda, and most of it goes back to Illuminati and Satanism and stuff like that. All right, so this is very true. All right. These same nations also possess technology that is far more advanced than you can imagine and which is kept carefully hidden from the public view, all right? This is also true. Secret space program and stuff like that, there are technology that are so far advanced, thousands of years through fallen angels and things like that, all right? So what he's talking about is real. This includes advanced artificial intelligence capable of undermining and deciding any election in the world, biological and chemical agents that can manipulate and control the thinking patterns and behaviors of citizens. We've heard something about this before. And talking about how they've worked or have different flu vaccines that would manipulate somebody that they would lose their relation or give up their faith. This is very interesting. Biological and chemical agents that can manipulate and control thinking patterns and behaviors of citizens to terrifying degrees. Highly sophisticated manipulation techniques using hypnotic practices entirely unknown to the public, and other things that I will not go into now. Totally believe in that, especially from the Hitler Third Reich and stuff like that, the stuff that they were testing, using demons to put in people. For the same effects as hypnosis and things like that, especially when you're putting in different levels or breaks inside people. This is how you create sleeper cells and stuff like that that can be activated. So it's very true and all that stuff. My point is that the great nations do not compete so much as work together. Their principal goal is to shield the truth, workings of the world from the uninitiated public. Let me return to the virus. Last year, large-scale anti-government protests erupted in Hong Kong. We all know about that, okay? The Standing Committee of the Chinese Communist Party considered these to be a grave threat to the integrity and stability of the motherland. The U.S. government and EU both knew that the Chinese were secretly working on a biological agent that was supposed to make the protesters docile and obedient, just kind of like Nazi camps fluoridating the water and stuff like that, all right? Without going into detail, I worked on that project. We tried to develop a sort of spray that could be dispersed from helicopters or drones, and that would lead to mental retardation and behavioral change. Naturally, as Hong Kong is one of the most open and international cities in the world, the party decided that it was too risky to release the agents in Hong Kong without first testing it. For this, it needed a great number of human guinea pigs. Two groups were identified for this. First, we rounded up a large number of so-called Islamic radicals in Zhejiang province and took them to what we call training camps. We had already been using these camps for human experimentation for several years, but the Hong Kong protests meant that we redoubled our efforts. We exposed the inmates to various alpha experimental agents, and these were odorless and invisible. The subjects were not aware that they were taking part in any medical trials. The resulting high rate of cancer, premature dementia, suicidal depressions, and death by organ failures could easily be suppressed as the camps are located in very remote parts of the motherland. Once the initial experiments had yielded a beta agent, it was transported to the Hubei province where it was deployed in a special military testing facility outside the city of Wuhan. This was not even a particularly well-kept secret. The existence of this facility has been reported in international news. Even the fact that it is located close to the wild animal market is known fact. By then, our president had already introduced a social credit system that allowed us to identify disloyal, counter-revolutionary, and bourgeois elements in our society using the social credit scores, which are taken from the online activity, electronic shopping behavior, and reports from informers in civil society. We selected some of the worst offenders. These included human rights lawyers, activists, Christians, homosexuals, artists, intellectual people who speak foreign languages, and other undesirables, right? This goes to show you what communism's like, all right? They don't want anything that comes against them or what they're about, all right? Once these troublemakers had been collected and placed in the testing facilities, aka like FEMA camps of their own, or death camps, we could call it, we exposed them to the agent, which is a biochemical in nature and spread in an invisible aerosol akin to certain viruses. Already here, we're starting to see something. The aerosol spray, how it spreads, some of the stuff talking about the coronavirus, okay? We're starting to see what this guy's talking about, how there's a similarity to this and what they were working on, all right? It had to do with the Hong Kong riots that we all know about and how they wanted to quell that whole situation, but they didn't know how to, especially on the whole world stage, because they couldn't go in there and do mass genocide, all right? Initial results were encouraging. We saw significant cognitive decline and reduction in higher mental processing facilities. Essentially, our undesirables were becoming mildly mentally disabled, which is precisely the effects we wanted to produce order to pacify the arrested population of Hong Kong. Unfortunately, it quickly became apparent that the agent also had other effects. About 1 week after the retardation center, our subjects developed major anxiety and panic attacks. Eventually, they developed symptoms akin to those of paranoid schizophrenics. and at that point, their bodies rapidly deteriorated. They developed massive internal bleeding, the walls of their arteries dissolved, and they bled out of their eyes, orifices, and tissues disintegrated. To put it more in a direct Western manner, they started to melt. Death usually occurred through multiple organ failures. This was preceded by at least 5 days of severe agony, which could not be alleviated by painkillers. It was at this time that I first violated our protocol. One subject, an elderly lady who had published defamatory cartoons of our president, begged me for death with such intent that I took pity and shot her. I was reprimanded, but unfortunately the complaint was dropped. When I agreed to reimburse the cost of the bullet, I swore to myself never again to show such unnecessary emotion. We decided that our agent was unusable. As far as it was far too destructive for our purposes. We wanted to the population of Hong Kong to submit to us that we didn't want to exterminate it. Naturally, our American friends had been taken an interest in our work and asked for a sample for their own research and testing purposes. They hinted that they wished to use it to resolve certain difficulties in Venezuela. We all know about that, what was going on down there, and how they wanted to put in that guy the CIA did anyways, all right? And it's the CIA that's asking for this.
There's a lot of details. I don't know if you need to hear them all, but I want you to hear how this virus got spread. It's coming up.
We've agreed as we maintain friendly relations with CIA, but given the extreme toxic nature of the agent, we declined. This, as it turned out, was a grave mistake. The CIA was convinced that we had developed something very powerful and wanted to keep it to ourselves. They offered a great deal of money to one of our researchers. Foolishly, he agreed to sell them a specimen. We found out just in time for the handover and tried to stop it from happening. In the ensuing shootout, don't bother to look for it, in parentheses, in the news, it was never reported anywhere. Several dozen people were killed. More importantly, however, the agent escaped. The shootout took place at a wild animal market, which has been reported, and it's in the location of the animal-to-human transmission that started at the outbreak. But of course, there was no such transmission. It was just the location where the CIA was supposed to receive and seal the sealed vial containing the agent. The vial shattered when it was dropped by the trader who had agreed to sell it to the Americans. By now, I understand you'll be skeptical. If I really am who I say I am, why would I be sharing this information on the internet? Let me assure you that I am no friend of the Western system of governance. I love my motherland, and I am loyal to the Communist Party.
Okay, I don't know. My new camera is not up for some reason. And this was supposed to be a test. Let me go to StreamYard. And broadcast.